Hi there, Wycliffe Barrett. Today is a different video entirely. I'm going to talk about my flight simming career. How did it start, when did it start, and how long I've been doing it. And even more importantly, why I do it. So we'll get right into the video. And it really all started in 1977 when Tandy brought out the TRS-80. I got hands-on in 1978, which seems like eons ago now. So in 1978, there was a shop in Bolton called Tandy Microelectrics, and I used to go in that shop because my mate was the manager, and I used to play this game on the TRS-80, which was called Lunar Lander. And you had to work out your thrust and your descent rate and everything and try and land in that little space, in that gap. So that was supposed to be the moon's surface, all jagged and everything. And you had to land the lander in that gap. And you had to work it all out. I mean, it was really straightforward and basic, but to me, this was revolutionary, and it really started me off on my kind of journey of being a gamer. I used to spend hours in this shop, and my mate, who was the manager, he just used to let me go in there. We'd drink coffee, we'd have lunch, and then I'd carry on trying to land my lunar lander in there. So that was the first thing. And then along came the ZX Spectrum from Lord Sinclair, and this had the most bizarre computer language ever. Then I got the Commodore 64, and this would be around about 1981, after I'd lived abroad. But my very first flight sim game on a computer was Secret Weapons of the Luftwaffe. I didn't have a computer. A friend of mine had a computer, desktop computer, and I used to go to his house and I'd play Secret Weapons of the Luftwaffe. I mean, just look at these graphics. They're absolutely horrendous. But at the time, it was cutting edge, and anybody who had a computer and was into flight would play this Secret Weapons of the Luftwaffe. You had missions. You could be either Germany or the Allies, and I mean, it was absolutely shocking, really. But it was good fun at the time. It was VGA graphics, and you had that awful tinny sound coming out of the computer speaker. But you know, I still talk about this even to this day. Secret Weapons of the Luftwaffe was just, I mean, it was horrendous, but at the time, it was great fun. And it was also around this time, though, that I thought that, I'd be okay at doing kind of mission based stuff, but I certainly wasn't a what do you call it, a fighter pilot. I was no good in dogfights, that's for sure. I was pretty terrible. But here we are. This is almost comical looking at this now, but this was the start. And then Falcon 3, Operation Fighting Tiger. Now I had this, and it had a fantastic manual for it. It was a huge, thick manual, over 300 pages. It was very detailed. It was more detailed than the simulator is, as you can see. But this is the first time that we could fire at stuff and maybe get into a dogfight. But it was during this that I realised I was no good at dogfighting. It was absolutely shocking. After this, I think there was something called AV-8B Harrier Jump Jet, which was mission based. It was set in the fictional place of Timor in the Indian Ocean, and you could set up campaigns and all sorts of things. But it was all pretty basic. But at the time, revolutionary. Once again, revolutionary for us all. But I then moved on to space based stuff, and this is what came along: LucasArts and this. You cannot get better than a Star Wars simulation. Absolutely incredible. As the rebel insurgency spreads, the Galactic Empire has become embroiled in open civil war. To avenge the Emperor's defeat at Yavin, Darth Vader has struck back at the rebel base on Hoth. Caught in the crossfire is the family of Tomas and Antan Azumi, owners of a I mean, it's just incredible, isn't it? We had this game, we had the Star Wars scroll, and it was a new family. It wasn't Skywalker or anything. I mean, there is so much within the Star Wars universe that could be explored, but this was the pinnacle of graphics. I can't even remember what my PC was at this time. I did have my own computer, and this was the first game I bought. This and I bought something called Darklands, which was an RPG role-playing turn-based game. And I played this for hours and hours and hours. And I would have it on speakers. Uh, I would open up the windows of my study, and neighbors, all my neighbors could hear was laser blasts and X-wings, and I was just incredible. It was fantastic. But I was looking for something more, and I knew that space-based games were not my thing. Uh, Dogfighting was not my thing, but I kind of thought, you know, civil aviation, maybe flying aircraft would be more my thing. And so eventually, what came along but uh, another sim, which I'll talk about in a moment. Does anybody remember Descent? Descent was kind of space-based, but you was in this kind of tunnel-based system, and you could shoot. And I actually played this online. This was one of the very first games where I played multiplayer. Me and my son-in-law. My son-in-law lived approximately 5 miles away. We would get up on dial-up, and of course we had to pay for time then. So we would be on dial-up. One night I would ring his modem, and then the next night he would ring my modem, and we'd play against each other in Descent, which was absolutely incredible at the time. I mean, it was really bizarre, using this little spaceship flying around inside this space station. It was great fun, but this is where it all started for me. Started with Microsoft Flight Simulator. I think it was 98. This is Flight Sim 98, and I thought this was the bee's knees. I could actually take off in a plane. I could see a plane. I could fly from an airfield, or many airfields, originally designed by Bruce Artwick, um, and then taken over by Bill Gates and Microsoft. And of course, as we know from this point on, I think it was Flight Sim 95 was the first one, but I got into it in 98, and I mean, once again, the graphics were pretty shoddy. I don't know what's going on here with the three planes taking off at the same time. This is not my video. This is a video I picked up from somewhere. But this was the start of it. This was the start of flight simulation as we know it today, for me anyway. I mean, it did start off with vector graphics and just line graphics, green screen. No idea what's going on there, but yeah, people having great fun with that video. So from here, we moved on to FS 2004 Pro. So this is FS 2004 Pro. Now, this was revolutionary in every way because you had ostensibly what could be called photo scenery. It wasn't photo scenery, but you could get things like get mapping photo scenery for the UK. I had that. And you could get scenery packages for other parts of the world, but they were really expensive. Um, but it it was really good, and you had the basics of flight. I mean, look at that cockpit, simple 2D cockpit, but all the gauges are there. You've got the 6 gauge main gauges on the left there with situational awareness. Then we moved up to FSX. Now at this point, I actually built a machine specifically for FSX. It was power hungry. It needed a lot more resources, and I built a machine specifically for FSX. And I think I had FSX 2 days after it came out on my new machine, and I knew everything I needed to know about FSX. I learned it from top to bottom. I I was on the forums talking about it, giving advice, tips and tricks and everything. And I really knew as much as I possibly could about FSX. I'd read the manuals, everything. It was, it was brilliant at the time. Um, and then things started to go wrong. I spent more time fiddling, troubleshooting, tweaking than flying, and it was time for a change. And I looked at a number of things. I looked at DCS World and a couple of other things, none of which appealed to me. And then I came across X-Plane, and X-Plane 10 just opened up a whole new world for me. And very quickly I realized that this was where flight simulation was going to be. And it was at about this time that I created X-Plane Dedicated, which was my Facebook group and also my YouTube channel, because I really thought that X-Plane was the way to go. And it was all down to things like blade element theory, the way the aircraft behaved, the way they felt. I mean, what you're seeing here is the default 747 and X-Plane 10, which always felt heavy and had mass, and that's what I wanted in a flight simulator. And of course, since X-Plane 10, I mean, there was X-Plane 9 before this, but X-Plane 10 just hit all the right buttons for me. It had everything that I could possibly want. Good graphics, incredible systems. You could configure it in many, many ways. And in fact, for X-Plane 10, I think I was still on my old machine, but it worked straight out of the box. I thought it looked fantastic. And then X-Plane 11 came along, which was even more powerful. And X-Plane 11 really pushed flight simulation way out there. I mean, photo scenery became available. You could have ortho photo scenery. You could have weather, and the weather engine in X-Plane has always been superb. It really makes aircraft feel alive. The whole environment feels lively, and that you're actually flying something with mass. I mean, just on that takeoff there, you could see the aircraft moving in a very different way because of blade element theory. I mean, even recently, there's been an interview on the Blue Experience, and a developer talking about the difference between X-Plane and Microsoft. Microsoft uses lookup tables to define how an aircraft behaves in certain weather, whereas X-Plane uses blade element theory, whereby the weather has an impact on the aircraft. And I just fell in love with this, and so I kept producing videos for my YouTube channel. I kept the X-Plane Dedicated on Facebook alive. It's not as alive as it should have been, but it's getting there. And then X-Plane 12. X-Plane 12 is the pinnacle of flight simulation. Weather, clouds, scenery, all combining together to have an impact on an aircraft. You have seasons. It's just superb. A friend of mine, he converted from P3D to X-Plane 11 a couple of years ago, and he could not believe how good X-Plane 11 was. And now he's on X-Plane 12, same as myself. And every flight is a pleasure. The last few days we've been doing a number of flights in Airbus aircraft, flying into bad weather at both Gatwick and Lyon, and I mean, it's just been incredible. The weather engine, the clouds, the buildings, the scenery, I mean, the water. And here you see blade element theory actually working on an aircraft, how it slices an aircraft up into individual bits, and the weather has an impact on that aircraft across all of those parts. You can get VR support, and not only VR support, but you've got motion tracking, head tracking support. You've got things like Beam, Toby Fly, all within X-Plane. And hardware, I mean, it's just amazing, absolutely incredible, and I'm always going to stick with it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Started in 1977, and here we are now in 2024. 2026, sorry. I'm missing a couple of years. I'm going to work out how long that is from 1977 to 2026. We'll see you soon. Cheerio.